As polls open across New York, New Jersey and Virginia, the political temperature in America rises sharply. 1 year into his second term, President Donald Trump is once again under the microscope, this time not on the global stage, but at home. These state and city elections are shaping up as the first tangible referendum on his influence, testing whether the Trump brand still energizes voters or shows signs of fatigue. From New York City's three-way mayoral clash to New Jersey's cost of living battle and Virginia's high-stakes governor race, the results could redraw early maps of America's political mood. 1 year into his second term, will these elections confirm Trump's enduring appeal or expose cracks in his political armor? I'm Henny Saif, and this is Think Tank.
Our world is becoming unhinged.
The U.S. elections face a significant security challenge as the Department of Homeland Security reduces its cybersecurity support to local election officials. According to Bloomberg, despite heightened concerns over election integrity and cyber threats, budget cuts and shifting priorities have led to fewer resources and assistance being available for local governments tasked with safeguarding voting systems. This reduction raises questions about the resilience of election infrastructure amid attempts to ensure free and fair voting processes. Experts warn that diminished federal support could increase vulnerability to cyber attacks or disruptions during critical elections, including those in New York, New Jersey and Virginia, which are already politically high stakes and closely watched as tests of President Trump's popularity. The decision underscores ongoing tensions between security needs and federal resource allocation in U.S. elections. Today's elections in New York, New Jersey and Virginia are pivotal tests of President Donald Trump's influence nearly a year into his second term. New York Times stated that in New York City, Zohran Mamdani, a young Democratic socialist, competes against former Governor Andrew Cuomo, running as an independent, with Trump's endorsement, and Republican Curtis Sliwa. The race highlights deep generational and ideological divides within the Democratic Party. In New Jersey, the contest reflects the battle over Trump's legacy, as Republican Jack Ciaratelli, backed by Trump, faces Democrat Mickey Sherrill amid debates over cost of living issues. Virginia's race, which will elect the state's first female governor, showcases Democrats' efforts to flip traditionally red countries amidst voter reactions to Trump's policies and the recent government shutdown. These elections serve as crucial indicators for the 2026 midterms and the broader direction of American politics.
As voters across New York City, New Jersey and Virginia head to the polls, what's unfolding is more than a series of local races. It may mark the first real public referendum on Donald Trump's second-term standing. In New Jersey, the governor's race has become a key test of Trump's hold on suburban and Latino voters. According to Politico, Passaic Country, long a Democratic stronghold but carried by Trump in 2024, is now ground zero for measuring whether his gains among Latinos endure without him on the ballot. National polling highlights the broader stakes. A Washington Post ABC Ipsos survey conducted in late October found that 59% of Americans disapprove of Trump's job performance. while 64% believe he is overstepping presidential power. Meanwhile, The Guardian reports his approval rating has fallen to 37%, the lowest of his second term so far. In New York City, the mayoral race between progressive Zohran Mamdani and independent former Governor Andrew Cuomo reflects local forces more than direct Trump influence, but the national interpretation will be significant. Analysts describe these off-cycle contests as the first tangible gauge of Trump's political durability as he and his team attempt to translate his popularity into lasting power. As one political observer noted, if Trump-backed candidates in these states prevail, it will suggest his toolkit, endorsements, turnout machines, brand energy remains effective. If not, we may be witnessing the first cracks in his national appeal. These races are a crucial early test, but will they prove Trump's grip is slipping or still firm?
To explore these pivotal local elections and their implications for President Trump and both major parties, we have invited two distinguished guests, Ms. Ginger Chapman, the lawyer and political analyst based in Washington, and Mr. Simon Ateba, the chief White House correspondent from Washington, D.C. Together, they will help us unpack the dynamics at play and forecast what these races could mean for the future of American politics, whether these state-level battles reveal early fault lines or newfound strength for the Trump presidency. Welcome to Think Tank. Ms. Chapman, let's begin with the big picture. Are these local elections a barometer of President Trump's popularity?
Well, first, Mr. Haney, thank you for having us today, and greetings to your viewers and to your other guests. And yes, these off-year elections are an important barometer of how the midterms will go, and they are also a referendum on the president's past performance since his election. He's been in office less than a year. However, he is still deeply polarizing. And it turns out President Trump is still the biggest driver to getting voters out to cast their ballots. Even though Trump is not on the ballot, he is motivating both Democrats and Republicans to turn out. And as we've seen in the New York mayoral race, turnout is reaching record numbers. Turnout is 4 times higher than the previous mayoral race in 2021. And this is not just because of the excitement over the candidate, Zohran Mamdani. This is also a referendum on President Trump's performance so far. One thing that is notable that Mamdani did after Trump won the presidential election, Mamdani went to neighborhoods in New York and he asked them, did you vote for Trump? And if so, why? And the biggest response he got was, New York City is becoming unaffordable, the cost of living is too high, and we keep electing Democrats and nothing ever changes. And this became his campaign message to great success. On the other hand, what we have seen from President Trump is a lack of strategy. For example, the Republican candidate in New York, Curtis Sliwa, he did not endorse at all. Instead, he endorsed the Democrat turned independent candidate Cuomo, which was very surprising to Republicans in light of the acrimony between Cuomo and Trump during the COVID years. Cuomo and Trump had great battles and were notoriously at odds during COVID. So Trump's endorsement of Cuomo surprised Republicans. And then in the Virginia race, which is another very important barometer, usually the way Virginia goes in these off-election races determines the House of Representatives in the midterms. And President Trump did not campaign at all for Winston Earls, the Republican candidate, and he did not endorse her. And she also followed a flawed strategy. Instead of trying to turn out low low turnout voters. Instead, she chased Northern Virginia voters who are notoriously Democrat. So, due to President Trump's performance, also due to a lack of strategy supporting Republican candidates, and also due to the messages that the Democrat candidates, particularly Mamdani, has espoused, which is affordability and a change. As we've seen, our establishment candidates are not generating the change that the voters have been demanding. So this election, it's very significant, especially for an off-year election. There's usually low turnout for off-year, but there is a great deal of attention to this election, and it will signal how the midterm elections will go for President Trump and the country.
Well, Mr. Atiba, historically, how predictive have the off-year elections been for midterm or presidential momentum?
So usually, first of all, thank you for having me. Usually the party in power loses a lot of seats, loses those elections. You remember President Obama suffered the same fate. He came in 2008 and he won big, but in 2009 he lost those seats. And Virginia has also been flipping. You know, right now they have a Republican governor, but it's likely that they're going to have a Democratic governor in the next few hours. I just want to say that you know, the question you asked the other guest, I'm very close to people in the Trump orbit. All of them follow me, including all his children, and they follow me on X. And all the people around Trump, including his chief of staff, they follow me. And so I know exactly what the people wanted when he came to power. No one elected Trump to bomb Iran. No one elected Trump to bomb Palestine and go to war with Nigeria. Most often, when I talk to people during the election, what they wanted, they didn't want any new war. They wanted the cost of living to be affordable. They wanted the president to focus on those things. And I think the president has not focused on those things. And today's election will be like a referendum on how popular and how people reject
Mr. Atiba,
us.
then do you think Trump's approval has slipped since his second inauguration? Are we witnessing early voter fatigue or just localized discontent?
No, I think he's shot himself in the leg. And his approval rating has gone down. He said on Truth Social, I think yesterday, that he has the best approval numbers. But you know, the president usually he praises polls when he wins or when he's doing well, and he rejects them when he's not doing well. Of course, a lot of people that I talk to don't really want a lot of the things that he's doing about tariffs. No one wants you to impose tariffs on all the countries around the world, go to war with Nigeria, go to war in Venezuela, bomb people at sea, and all those things. People don't want that. The people that I talk to don't want that, including people in his base. People in his base, they actually wanted him to release the Epstein files, which he promised to release. He's not released them. So he's done 90% of the things people asked him not to do. And I don't think that he's going to do well in today's election. I don't think that they are going to do well in the midterm. That's the reason he didn't campaign with them, because a lot of those candidates don't actually want to be associated with him because they see how his numbers are going down. They see how, you know, the rule of law and going after political enemies, the things that he said that he didn't want to do. And so people are not really happy about those things. And I think we are going to see that manifesting in the election that will take place today.
Ms. Chapman, Trump's presence is most visible in New Jersey, where Jack Ciattarelli runs with his endorsement. How might a Republican win there reshape the narratives around Trump's reach in blue-leaning states?
Well, New Jersey has been an important swing state, surprisingly, and this is because during Trump's presidential candidacy last year, New Jersey is a notoriously blue, heavy Democrat state, And we see with the candidate Ciattarelli that he has a chance to turn New Jersey from blue to red. And this would be very significant. The Northeast states are a very important Democrat stronghold. It's very difficult for Republicans to make inroads there, mainly because it's very urban. Republicans tend to do well in rural areas or less urban, less city areas. And because New York, New Jersey, it's very highly urban, Democrats tend to dominate in those areas. So much like we saw Pennsylvania in the last presidential election flipped from blue to red, if Ciattarelli can win as governorship in New Jersey, this would be highly significant for the Republicans. This would be a big win in a formerly Democrat stronghold, and this will encourage Republicans to continue making inroads and focusing their efforts in other predominantly Democrat, deep blue urban areas. Perhaps the best we can do is to turn New Jersey purple. That remains to be seen. New Jersey is a very close race. However, just to touch on what your previous guest mentioned, he made the excellent point that Trump's approval ratings have dropped significantly and shockingly for President Trump this early in his term, and especially given how high his approval ratings were just as recently as February. Mm-hmm. He's down to 19% with under 30-year-old voters, and these are the voters that are turning out the most and seem to be the most motivated. And the Democrats are highly motivated in their resistance to Trump, at the same time that the Republicans are surprisingly in an increasing disarray over Trump's foreign policy. And indeed, all voters, whether they're Democrat or Republican, they do see that Trump is making a great deal of foreign overseas trips for international prosperity, for economic trade. However, conditions at home are becoming more dire. Our government shutdown, the situation with the food stamps, air traffic controllers, employees not getting paid. So Americans feel that domestically we are on the brink, and Trump needs to focus his attentions here at home. His overseas trips, he gets a great deal of praise and accolades. He enjoys going overseas for these receptions he is getting, the photo opportunities, the summits. But it is time for President Trump to focus his attention on domestic issues. And indeed, the Republican Party is in a mutiny right now. Half of the Republican Party is engaged in a military-industrial complex establishment, orgiastic frenzy of military spending and war efforts. As your other guest mentioned, yes. We're bombing boats in Venezuela, Colombia, now perhaps going into Nigeria, while Ukraine is still at war. The Middle East is going up in flames. So we see that Trump is focusing his attention overseas, but we're not seeing the peace and prosperity abroad, and we're not seeing the prosperity at home. So these elections are a very important referendum on President Trump, and they're highlighting his lack of strategy both at home and abroad.
Yes, well, let's try and take a look at the Republican Party now. Mr. Ateba, what role do Trump's endorsements and active campaigning play in energizing the Republican base at this stage?
I think Trump is still very popular. He's the strongest force when it comes to the Republican Party. We have opposition now. We see he's losing votes in the Senate. We have senators rising against him and voting against him for tariffs on Canada and different places. But because of his approval ratings, people actually are trying to distance themselves from him. A lot of Republicans, they don't say it publicly yet, but some people that I talk to, they wish he could just focus on America first, That's what he was elected for. He wasn't elected to bomb people in Venezuela, go to war in Nigeria, bomb Iran, and all those things that he's doing are actually the things that people in the GOP didn't want. And so his endorsement are actually becoming very negative now. People don't want him to endorse them. People don't want him to campaign with them. And we will see the result tonight in Virginia and New Jersey and even in New York City, where he didn't endorse the Republican and he endorsed an independent.
Mm-hmm. Ms. Chapman, to what extent is Trump personally invested politically and financially in these races?
Well, one of the things that was surprising is, once again, Trump did not endorse the Virginia candidate for governor, Winston Earl Sears. He did not campaign for her. And this is significant, even though Virginia tends to elect a governor that is the opposite of the presidential party in power. So when there's a Democrat as president, Virginia tends to elect a Republican governor and vice versa. So Trump may have said, we're going to write off Virginia. This is a mistake. Trump needs Virginia. He needs the politicians in Virginia to get behind his policies. And once again, we saw that in New York, very confusing. He endorsed Cuomo instead of the Republican. So Trump, these off-year elections are highlighting that Trump is not really focused on domestic policies, that Trump's strategies appear to be a bit chaotic. He is reacting to events. He is not taking control of events. And indeed, we have seen very little of Trump on the campaign trail for these elections. This is very uncharacteristic of Trump. He enjoys holding rallies and campaign events. So this is a signal that Trump himself is bogged down by the controversies, his trade deals, his tariff battles. Indeed, we see that today his tariff case is going before the Supreme Court, which will rule on whether Trump has the authority to impose the tariffs he has. Trump says if the court does not rule his way, there will be chaos, economic chaos afterwards. However, the American people feel that we are already experiencing chaos. We are not getting the promises of campaign candidate Trump, where he did say he would resolve our international issues and he would work on our economy at home. Instead, what we have gotten is economic, trade, and tariff chaos. We've gotten more confusion over our international relations. And now we are seeing that we are preparing perhaps ground troops to send into Venezuela. We're sending soldiers into Mexico to battle drug cartels. We are preparing operations in Nigeria.
Yes.
And we are, so once again, there is foreign disorder and chaos. There is economic and domestic chaos. And also, the midterm elections tend to go in the opposite direction of the recently elected president. Trump should be focusing his efforts on the House of Representatives, which is in a civil war over President Trump's foreign policy right now. So there are a great many domestic and international fires that Trump should be putting out. He needs to exercise leadership rather than focusing on his ballroom that he's building on the East Wing, rather than focusing on the marble renovations of the Lincoln bathroom. Trump needs to lay out a clear strategy for the American people, what he hopes to accomplish before he becomes a lame duck and wastes the next 3 years of his presidency, rather than setting the tone for the American people for the next 3 years.
Yes. Well, speaking of strategy, Mr. Atiba, how does Trump's political posture, his strategy in states that he lost consecutively, contrast with his approach this election cycle?
Yeah, I actually think that it doesn't have, I don't know, I've not seen it. I've not seen a strategy, even when it comes to the tariffs, right? I think he's like the hopes, and because I'm very close to the Republican base, I know their hopes and aspiration. They need manufacturing to return to the country. They want the US to manufacture things here, to produce things here, iPhone here, and everything. Everyone wants that. But when you impose tariffs on all countries and all goods and all at once, what you do is you push people to trade with China, and you push Canada to trade with China and look for other sources. And so, and you actually don't create any manufacturing here. You don't, people still don't produce anything here. What he's done, fewer people are trading with the US, more people are trying to look for how do I trade with China, India, and other, even Russia. So I don't see the strategy. I also don't see the strategy even in Africa. He's at war with South Africa. He's expelled the South African ambassador to the US. He's at war with Nigeria, the two biggest economies in Africa. So how do you trade with those people? How do you, those are the people you can actually have, you need to have strong relationship with. But he's at war with all of them. He's banned 6 or 7 African countries from coming to the US. So I don't know. I don't see any strategy either at home or abroad with Ukraine and Russia. I don't see any strategy. I don't see anything that has worked so far. I believe that today is Ford, or is it today's Ford? He was elected a year ago tomorrow,
Mm-hmm.
and he's wasted that first year with all the things that he's done. All he should have done was just to focus on his agenda, the border and domestic, trying to reduce the cost of living. But he's gone beyond that, and he's shot himself in the leg, and he's going to pay. I believe that he's going to pay tonight when the results are in.
Mm-hmm. Ms. Chapman, how might the federal government shutdown, its effects on public perception, impact the turnout and voting decisions in these states?
What is truly surprising about this government shutdown is that 45% of voters blame the Republicans and only 33% of voters blame Democrats, even though the Republicans, Speaker Mike Johnson, are getting out there and making speeches every day about how this is the Democrats' fault. They are refusing to reopen the government. They're refusing to negotiate. And what the American people see is that both parties are making speeches, both parties are digging in their heels, and yet the government is still not open. We are seeing federal workers go without pay. They are lining up at food banks to get food because they have no paychecks. We see that poor single mothers, people on disability, elderly people are unable to get their food stamps that they rely on to be able to eat, even as the holiday season is approaching and Thanksgiving is coming up. Thanksgiving is one of the biggest travel times of the year. While our air traffic controllers are not showing up for work, airline flights are delayed. Transportation appears to be crumbling around the entire country. And all of this highlights that President Trump seems to be unable to control the Republicans, to get a grip on the operations of the federal government. And instead of President Trump fixing the country as the voters were optimistic would happen, we seem to be getting into more and more chaos. And the government shutdown and the inability of our politicians to reopen the government. Now we're in the longest shutdown ever. This is one more symptom of the political chaos. And one other thing that I might mention is that these off-year elections are a harbinger of the midterms. Mm-hmm. And if the Democrats win the midterms, they will try to impeach Trump again. This time, they will have more substantive issues A great example is Trump acting in contravention of constitutional authority, bombing these boats in Venezuela. This appears to be a violation of our Constitution and our War Powers Act and contravening congressional authority. Trump is trying to use terrorism laws to get around the war laws. But this is going to give Democrats a great deal of substantive material to impeach him if they win the midterms. So the next 2 years of Trump's presidency could hinge on these elections and on the midterms. And once again, we see increasing chaos rather than the order and the law and order that Trump promised us.
Yes. Ms. Ginger Chapman and Mr. Simon Ateba, thank you both for your insights into these pivotal elections and their far-reaching implications for the American political landscape. Tonight's results may not decide Trump's fate, but they do illuminate America's political pulse. That's all the time we have for this episode of Think Tank. I'm Henny Seif. Thank you for joining us.